Thanks, Catherine.
It's backwards to the rest of it.
Definitely gonna get that. That one.
Yeah, how many? Yes.
So many passwords. There in the background, do its thing. Okay, we're ready.
Okay, let's go over the Monday, August 8th, 2022 Board of Trustees meeting. The first order of business being public participation. Do you have any?
I have none.
Okay, we'll move into review previous meeting minutes, pages 2 through 9 in the package. Is there any, we'll take a minute quickly to go through the minutes. Any comments? Okay.
I'll make a motion to accept the previous meeting minutes.
I'll second. Okay, thanks. All those in favor, signify by raising your hand. See no opposition. Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Okay, we'll go into the financial report, pages 10 through 18, and the treasurer's update.
Okay, so we have 1 month in the fiscal year, so as you can see, there's not a whole lot of activity. The only income that we received so far, if you want to go to 12, I guess, is from fines and fees and some interest income. One thing I want to note under expenses is that we did pay 2 months worth of health insurance, which, so that looks high.
Yeah.
Just the way the bills fell and when they were paid, one bill was paid at the beginning of July, the other was paid at the very end of July. So that'll catch up as we move forward throughout the year. One thing I want to note is that our interest rate on our money market account has increased due to the fact that the feds have increased interest rates. So prior to June 2022, our rate was 0.16%. It's basically nothing. In June, they raised it to 0.4%. In July, the bank raised it to 0.7%, and now beginning August 1st, the rate is now 1.2%.
Oh, wow.
Health insurance in advance of the month that it's for, or for the current month?
I believe it's in advance.
Tracy.
It is, but sometimes we receive the bills towards the latter part of the month. So I'm thinking that's what might have happened in July,
Mhm.
one actually got paid beginning of July.
Right.
And then we got the second one approved to paid it at the end.
Right.
So
Right.
it's just when they send them out.
Yeah, just a timing.
Jeff, can I just ask you to hit the plus button once, see if it. Great, thank you.
I don't know if anybody has any specific questions on the revenue and expense report, any other comments or questions? Happy to address them.
See, we paid the what's the accounting? Is that for the audit?
No, that's for, let's
The
see,
accounting software.
that's for the accounting
Oh,
software.
software, okay.
Yeah, audit services is just the line above it.
Okay.
There's not, we haven't paid anything yet. Oh, that's the other thing I do want to mention, the audit, the auditors will be here August 24th and 25th doing preliminary work, and then we'll come back in September. We have a couple of dates in September, I don't know what they are, towards the end, I think, to finish, to actually complete the audit. Starting to gear up for that. One other thing I want to mention under the warrants, there are some checks that were issued that you can see under the purchase order number. You'll see detailed report. Just if you scroll down to the bill schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one. The accounting system changed the way this report is being printed out. That happened a few months ago. See detailed report just indicates that there are several purchase orders that were paid under that particular check. And so instead of listing all the individual purchase order numbers, there's a detailed report behind it that lists all the purchase orders numbers, which we didn't feel was really necessary to include in this. It's just a bunch of numbers.
And there was nothing unusual on the list, anything special, this where it said the detailed report, is there anything unusual to get any of those payments?
Yeah, no, I don't think there's anything unusual in this.
Maybe unusual, so unique or like a one-time payment.
Unique or
No.
one time, yeah, no.
Yeah, I'm looking through this list, most of the Find Away, that's where we buy all those Playaway. The Playaway audiobooks are from there. Brodart is a classic library supply company. Baker and Taylor's our biggest book supplier. Midwest Tape, same thing for DVDs. Scholastic.
Went to Upper Hudson too. Upper Hudson is just the regular.
Yeah, there's a few,
Yeah.
there's a few things in there, I forget.
Yeah, the biggest checks that go to Upper Hudson are quarterly
Yeah, of course.
membership with Upper Hudson.
Any other questions or?
Well, that
comments?
is interesting, just because there's a detailed report for Upper Hudson, but isn't that just the payment for a membership with them?
No,
That and
No.
barcodes, I think we have, sorry.
I'm sorry, no, but I think part of what's in there is payment for some of the electronic services that we get through them. There's a couple, right?
Yeah,
Jeff?
Canopy gets
Yeah.
paid through Upper Hudson.
Yeah.
There's a number of things that they've
Yeah.
now pre-negotiated our services. Not all the libraries take like Canopy.
Right.
Most
Gotcha.
libraries in Upper Hudson are members, but not all. We pay our bill to Upper Hudson. They bill us monthly for that. So,
Kind of the Middleman.
but they are the account holder, so that it ties all of our accounts together, so it's a little easier for our patrons.
Okay, I'll take a motion on the financial report, including the warrants. I'm sorry. Remain second.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor, please signify by. No addition, that motion passes, thank you. Okay, going to the personnel report.
All right, so
The change.
you see what the
Yeah.
change is,
Hold on.
right? So
It's good news.
there's no, yes, but so there's a couple changes on here. The first one is that we've figured out where on the MC salary schedule we wanted the confidential secretary. And so I have the entry level salary for that position in here, and I'm seeking authorization to fill that. And then we will be seeking, I would like permission from you to either backfill our assistant director position, either as a librarian 3 or assistant director, depending on the folks that apply and how I think I want to fill that, depending on who we're getting. So the test for assistant director is a pretty heavy lift, and not everybody in the world qualifies for that exam. So I want to have a little bit more flexibility right now to be able to fill that with somebody.
Say that again. I want to make sure.
Okay.
Because there's $10,000 difference in the salary too. I want to
It
make
is.
sure I totally understand. I want to make sure I hear you. So.
Okay, so I would like the flexibility to fill this position as either a department head librarian 3,
Okay.
who's in charge, would be in charge of the circulation and technical services, or as an assistant director. The assistant director does all of the things that the department head does, plus additional administrative duties for the library. So neither of those jobs has an established list right now.
Oh,
So it's gonna be a provisional hire no matter what we do. And I would like to have a little bit more flexibility. I want to say, oh, I'd like to fill this as an assistant director. If I don't find someone who I think is ready to fill the assistant director role, then maybe I'll feel that person might be ready for the department head role, and that's the job I would offer.
Okay.
I'll have to ask Catherine, where are we losing you to?
Work for SUNY administration. It's an associate director of data analysis and assessment position for libraries across SUNY.
great.
Which I just. Thank you.
Big loss.
Yeah, huge loss.
Yep, huge loss.
That's what you're starting in September.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I need a motion on these personnel report, action requests.
I will just say, I'm pleased to see both the confidential secretary and the public services, that's one of the new positions that the board approved budget. It was in the budget that the voters approved.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, both the library assistant, which is that volunteer coordinator, and then the in public services, and then the confidential secretary. Those are those two. So we have all our ducks in the row with both of those as far as both the union and civil service is concerned. And now we just have to go through the hiring process, which is enough of a challenge lately,
Yeah.
but we're getting there. So
Everybody.
faster than I feared. Which is good.
The confidential secretary is not.
Correct.
Make a motion to approve the requested actions.
Okay, all those in favor, please signify by. Okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
Yes, I want to thank you for all your service. Big loss. Lucky new position, but it's definitely lost.
I love being here.
Great. Okay, moving on to director's report.
All right, so I'm nervous to even say this, that it looks like right now, like the actual impact of COVID on our staffing has finally started to wane. That's true, but I'm nervous that that's going to continue. So in any case, right now, that's where we are, right? So we took the opportunity, we're continuing to add new toys into the children's place. And then we took the opportunity to replace some of the ones that were super duper worn. We've got those on order, and those will continue to get put out over the next couple of weeks. So that is work in progress. And then we're going to, as we move into the fall, we've been, even though the weather is super hot right now, really over the summer, we've very much been lucky as far as being able to have most of our children's programs outside this summer. We've been able to have a lot of programs outside this summer. But as we look to the fall, we're going to be bringing those inside, and we're going to establish some limits on bringing them in, while at the same time, in most cases, we're adding additional sessions of those. You'll see those in the footnotes that are coming out, so that we can accommodate people. Because if we have to limit those, then if we can say, hey, in 45 minutes, we'll be starting another program for you. You just hang out here, we'll get you the next round. So that's how we're gonna work on that moving into the fall. But we will be using the community. So for me as director, the children's literacy programs are absolutely my #1 programming priority. So I have lots of programming priorities, but that's top. And so if you hear from folks in the community that the community room is less available, it is too bad. Children's programs are taking precedence, and that's it. So I will hear anybody who has a complaint about that. I will be sympathetic, work with them as much as we can to get them the rooms that we can, but we're going to be using that room. There's a lot more elbow room. Kids are able to spread out, particularly with programs involving a lot of motion. So we're using the community for the fall.
So can we continue with virtual adult programs and do more recording of them that makes those more available? I think I mentioned before, a lot of the programs that I maybe would attend would be during the day.
Right.
Doesn't work for me, so.
Well, and we've added, that's why you attended any of the new author, new author talks and stuff. So that's exactly our attempt to try to increase that, though, like you said.
Yes, but I think if you record it and at least make it available, you're providing some access, so.
Have we been doing that? For example, good question. Have we been doing that, recording programs and they're available?
So, yeah.
Is this room available for public use?
Right, but it's much
It's
less
smaller.
desirable. Well, that's just exactly it. It's smaller. And so even groups that may have traditionally wanted to use this room now want to use the other room, right? Because it's smaller, it's tighter in here. I get it. Everybody would like to have a little bit more elbow room when it comes to meeting. I think everybody's tolerance for that conference-y kind of audience, just they're just less tolerant of that. So
Is there, how much, what's the limit for this room? Is it? the same?
it's officially 38.
Or what, would you allow 38?
38, that's the fire code limit. We don't, I typically, I like it for the seats, if it's, I mean, the seats have to be in a very specific order to allow that. There's no tables in here with 38 chairs. So it's kind of like 20, 25 is like kind of a comfortable audience number in here.
So-
Right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Feels comfortable.
So have you had anybody ask if they could reserve like out under the,
We've had people ask that, and I tell them basically, if we're not doing a program out there and you're first, you can grab it, but we've been a little reticent to have it be reservable, but maybe we need to get there. But people have been using it a lot, and we'll put the chairs out there.
Yeah.
I mean, we're happy to do that. So, so the stage has been used a lot, and that's why, as we look at plans for stages, the occasional use of the stage has to be taken into consideration, because people just use that stage, especially now that the tent's out there all summer long. People been out there, they'll be early. Sometimes there's a meeting going on when I get here at 8:30. So, so we have not booked it that way for people, like where we reserve it for them, because we didn't want to get into reserving outside, but I guess we could get into that, and it's
could, if it's bad,
right.
and the weather stays as crazy as it's been.
Yeah, maybe it's gonna be super warm in the fall. We don't know. We were able to go pretty far into October last year, but I don't want to count on that. So. Okay, so that's that. It's COVID. Other than that, we're not on the pandemic response plan. Our reopening plan is complete. So that's where we are. We're just kind of in this management thing. I don't think there's anything to lead me to believe that things will be different this winter or next spring than they are right now. We're managing the situation that we have, and we will continue to do so. We'll react, imagining there'll be ups and downs as far as numbers, as far as our staff. We've certainly been through a couple rough months, but that seems to be leveling out now. Anyway, so that's where we are there. Our 3D printer died, so we put it back out, and then it 8 years old, as it turns out. So it owes us nothing, but we're gonna order a new one. I think there's certainly, as we start to put it back out, most people they're not booking it to use it. They want to book it to kind of understand what it is. So we're actually going to do some programs with the librarians to have them come in and demonstrate like what it is, what is 3D printing, like a quick introduction, and then also make it available for people who want it. We're going to order a new one. We're going to order MakerBot, which seem to do a good job. They have a lot of new updates to that, and we can use storage money for the purchase of that. So we will that's a perfect intention of that money. So there's a lot of new exciting stuff. So we'll get that put out. We'll get it put on order and get it here as fast as we can and get it put out for the public.
You have any idea how long? Are we talking 3 months?
I don't know. Hopefully they seem to be very available in stock. This is not, fingers crossed, it's not going to be a 6-month thing like everything else to order. I think there were a choice on their website. There were a choice of models. I have one that I like, and it was mostly they dealing with us as a government entity confused them a little bit. They like to just credit card in and order it. So we're getting it.
What's the range of cost you have with us?
They'll go up as expensive as you want to spend, way more money than our budgets can handle. But the one I'm looking at, the sort of prosumer model, it's going to be about $3,500. There was a more future-proof version. Yeah, no, there's a future-proof version that's more like 6,000. I think will not go that direction because it's going to get beat on, and so that's that.
The 3D scanner. I don't think so.
We had the 3D scanner. You know what? We'll look and see if they have a new and better 3D scanner. So we had a couple of those, and they never worked satisfactorily for us. They made a lot of people grouchy. So we'll look at that again. Exam proctoring back up. So just as far as these return to normal services that we're experiencing right now, that's just another sign of that. So we had 6 of those last month. Summer reading challenge, obviously, we're in the middle, the throes of summer reading right now. That's taking a lot of our attention. Lots of great programs happening here in the library, and I think overall a greater return of people to the building than we have experienced. I know, Charmaine, you were here the other day and you noticed that there were just more people
And more cars. I think
And-
I came in.
in the building, and that's my impression too. Not all hours of all days, but just more often, more people, more normal, more like what I expect here. But
Definitely the computer area, when you first walked in, you know, the computer area and young people milling around.
Right. And we added some computers out there. I don't think I have an intention of removing those additional computers. They're used enough. I mean, we've got all 10 out there used enough. And so evenings on the green happen, lots of good attendance out there, always higher attendance if it manages to be on the first night, Tuesday rather than the rescheduled day on Wednesday, but that's good. Thursdays in the Park is our partnership with the Friends of the Library, the Friends of the Park, the Parks and Rec Department, and the library all together, putting those on at the various parks around town. Really very popular, and I think that's just a perfect example of intergovernmental cooperation. And I don't see any expectation that that's going to be less in the future. I think they're pleased with the turnout. We're figuring out how we handle it. They're figuring out how they handle it, and it's been a good group. Upcoming programs, we've got some musical programs. We did want to team up with the Bethlehem Historical Association to bring some other historical programs for the library. Those will be here coming up in September. And then it seems like we just had the Friends book sale fundraiser back around again on September 17th. So that's the next one. They're just going to hold it on Saturday. They found that the Sunday did not work out for them. It just wasn't no reason to come and do it for 2 days. They're going to extend the hours from 10 to 4:30. And again, Michael's arranged for some musical accompaniment to the book sale, which people seem to really enjoy last time. So we're going to do that again in September. So that'll be fun. And then on October 10th, which is Indigenous Peoples Day / Columbus Day, Joe Bruchac. So on this case, we're going to absolutely double down on the Indigenous Peoples Day. Joe Bruchac is going to come here and do 2 programs for the public on that day. That's school's closed that day, so it's a good day for us to do school age programs. Guessing I'm getting a text about the sound quality. Nope. We're tracking the mail billing notices. That's one of the things we talked about as we eliminated fines. We're watching those numbers. I don't have numbers to report for you yet, but I want you to know we're tracking the manuals, the manual count as we mail those out. We'll be watching for that, but we have observed an uptick in the number of long overdue items that have come back. One that was more than 9 years old. So we were happy to have that item back, but a number in that sort of 200 to 300 day overdue range. Those books, we probably want them back, and they'll probably they go back in the collection. 9 years old. Depends on what it is. Maybe you're getting I'm guessing it didn't go back.
Even 200 is pretty
Yeah,
good.
right. Catherine says no. But in any case, we are getting some of those older items back. And then Chris and Catherine did a training program at the Collection HQ. That's that Upper Hudson provided software that contains some collection analysis and abilities to look at our collection in several different ways.
Does that include tracking hold times? Or just regular hold?
I think we can do that in our regular software. I think we can watch that right now. So
I know I put a few things on hold. Seems like a really long time, but maybe everyone's reading in the summer.
okay, it's definitely circus higher right now. So okay, we'll take a peek at that.
They can also vendor backlogs that we've had a lot of, sometimes they're not coming as fast as they used to.
Gotcha.
So, hopefully that's what resolved.
Were they pre-pubs, like reordering it before publication, or were they
One was, the others no,
okay?
but they were popular.
Yeah, but we try to keep even popular. That just is a signal for us to buy more. But maybe that's if we're buying extras, we can't get them as fast. It is for us. So
Getting billing notices, who's getting a billing notice, what's the criteria?
once it goes overdue and then past 30 days overdue, declare it lost, and we send a bill. So just some continuing ed work. Sarah, one of our new librarians, has been named to the Upper Hudson Equity Committee. She's going to be working with them on that. We have retooled the collection development policy. So I've been talking several months now about challenges to books from the public, just sort of challenges to collections. That's sort of an uptick. We're going to retool our collection development policy, just incorporate all of that, make sure that we're where we need to be. The Upper Hudson Library and the other library systems around the state came out with a sample policy. So we didn't just take their sample policy, but I asked Catherine to incorporate everything that was in that sample policy and make sure that our policy reflected that, stealing the language when appropriate and also just sort of keeping it in our style. So we'll have that to the policy committee this month for review. And hopefully we'll have that back to you next month. Interlibrary loan, we borrowed a book from the Grand Cache National Park Research Library, an oversized book for a patron. So it's nice to see interlibrary loan returning as well. And then, we chopped down the oak tree, the dead / super sick oak tree that was in the middle of the plaza. So we're going to be replacing that with a concrete planter. Money came from and has been delivered from the Progress Club in the name of several of the members who have passed away recently. And they're gonna pay for that, and we'll get that placed in whatever enormously heavy way that will get placed there. And then we'll have plantings there, and it'll be something to fill that space up a little bit. So
A nice tree.
It's good.
let's take a peek a little bit at the numbers. This is the first month of the year, so kind of a good month to reset. Last year, our circulation was up another 9.5% over last year. So you think where we were July of last year, we were open in the library functioning, but this year another almost 10% busier this year, which is good news. This 56,000 circulations in the month is beginning to approach what I expect pre-pandemic numbers. It's a little low for a July, but really not very low for recent years. So that's good news for us. Addition door count was up 15% over last year. That's this line right here. So we had about 14,000. That's still not half, but it's still down significantly from what I would have expected in a pre-pandemic time, but 15% up from last year, which makes me happy. So we're getting there, and all of the other computer signups are higher. The ebook use was up a little bit, which recently had been trending down because it was so high in the pandemic times. That ebook use was so high, but now it's settled out into its new normal, which is still higher than pre-pandemic times, but that's trucking along. So that's good. That's good news. And Wi-Fi use and all those sort of associated in-building uses. Regular gas and electric use. We did have an increase right here. If you'll see in July, this is our gas use. There was an issue with where the boiler was kicking on. And my office was like 111 degrees. So that wasn't awesome. But the boiler thought it needed to be on with Kevin from maintenance and our folks from train. They were able to chase out what was going on there and get that thing calmed down. But in the meantime, the boiler burned more gas than in our more recent summers. So that wasn't fantastic, but that'll be down for next.
That's our new boiler.
The boiler is the same boiler,
Oh, it's the same one.
but we use it. It runs in the summer because we use it for dehumidification, not in the boardroom and community room where we don't have any dehumidification. But in the rest of the building, it runs a little bit of heat for dehumidification purposes. But it decided to kick on and was running at winter temperatures, so 160 degrees. The boiler room was incredibly hot, and it was blowing 95-degree air into my room, which wasn't great. That whole wing of the building back, Christine, her office was getting it a little bit too. So they got it figured out.
Patrons didn't say anything.
The patrons, it didn't even notice. It didn't affect the patron area. It affected the staff, a bunch of the staff, like the IT office. So yeah, it was. The fin tubes were turned on. All kinds of weird stuff happened, but they got it chased out. So that's it for my director's report. Unless there's other questions.
Given no fiction About 11%.
Yeah.
Over that period. Coming in the noise or? Just odd, it's one of the only ones that's down.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I noticed that as well. It seemed a little weird to me because mostly fiction is the summer thing. That's when that jumps up. So, yeah, I don't know.
I would say it will be a result of more people who use those books are going more electronic. Especially if you're looking at teens, they rely more on their devices than probably would be, if I had to make a guess on that.
Jeff, can I just, since I didn't tell you I was gonna ask this ahead of time, and you might not know the answer. A meeting or so ago, you and I were talking about hotspots afterwards.
Yeah.
Because there was a misunderstanding about hotspots, the little
Yes.
device that you were purchasing
Correct.
versus additional things out in the community,
Correct.
and that the board had asked you to explore joint funding or
Yes.
additional funding.
Yes.
So maybe in September, can you just let us know about that larger project?
Sure, actually, I have a little mini update on that right now. So the folks at Five Rivers approached us again. John had to go out to troubleshoot, sometimes the equipment just goes down, it needs to get rebooted. So John went out, rebooted the equipment over there, and they have some new staff people at Five Rivers, just like every place else. And they said, we would really like to extend this to our outdoor classroom / pavilion, which they had asked before, but then we got a quote for trenching and it was like $8,000. And John said, hey, we went to the board about this. We're not willing to pay for the trenching. And the new person said, well, let me see if we can either have our staff do the trenching or pay for the trenching. So
That'd be great.
fantastic. So that's a little bit of movement on that. And that's where we would like to cover over there. No movement as far as Elmath Park, but similar situation. It's the, they're using it wirelessly, but we need a wire, right? So the only place, doesn't matter. We bridge it over to town hall. We don't have a wire that runs over to town hall. And that is complicated and finicky, but that's here in the building. So we can troubleshoot that a little bit more easily. When they're down at Elmath Park or in Five Rivers, the infrastructure needs to be robust. And the best way is that there's a fiber optic cable that runs through the ground from one point to another. And so if we, if they're can arrange for that, that makes it much more fiscally feasible for us. Buy the equipment, we put it up. We're not paying for an additional internet drop because we're bridging that one out, and it would cover. They have an ADA trailhead over there as well that I would love to cover. That if I can, there's a little hollow down at Five Rivers that don't even get cell phone service. So if we can make that work, but it's on them. They understand the ball's in their court. If they can figure out how to get us a wire there, either through an existing conduit or a new conduit, we'll put the equipment up and get it. So that wasn't the sense I got from them before, that was something they were willing to pursue, but now it seems to be something.
Right, I think we were talking about collaboration or just we're not covering the whole.
Yeah. So a little mini update.
Yeah, are there other places like, South Bethlehem, places that we don't really reach?
Well, South Bethlehem, we're not going because that's outside our district. So
Like places that we don't think about and or stuff.
yeah,
Like that.
yeah. I mean,
There's other ways we could, expand. our reach.
So listen, any idea on this, I'm into. I think it's a great thing for us to be doing. It's always popular wherever it is. Colonial Acres has been the least popular of those because I don't think as a park, it's just not as used.
Yeah.
The people that would use
But I think they're very excited.
Yeah.
it. Seriously.
So
That would be a good place.
I think the Arboretum could be good. We've talked about the firehouses.
Yeah.
But they're not necessarily, we don't want to create a demand for a space. We want to know where people are and we want to fill some demand.
Exactly.
Now, the other thing about this is as we move forward in time, the ubiquity of non-limited cell phone plans continues to increase. So in some ways, the demand for public Wi-Fi may not be forever, but I still like it because it feels like a very library thing for us to do. We pick up the folks that aren't in that bucket of people who have, unlimited Wi-Fi. or unlimited cell phone. So we're, I'm interested very much, if anybody's out there in the world listening and they're interested in talking about where else we could be putting Wi-Fi, where it would have a big community impact. I'm into it. I want to do it along the rail trail. I would love to just run it the whole way up and down the rail trail. And maybe that firehouse, you know, down there, we could probably branch up from there, but we looked at mesh network that would go along. It's just, that's pricey. It's awesome, but it's pricey. To be able to cover all the way up and down the whole, you need like a solar power repeater or something along that trail. So
Sounds like a grant.
Yeah, there maybe is, that might be a grant application or something.
Yeah.
Come in with some, you know, something.
like
Good partner.
the repeaters draw very little power. So in some ways, having a solar / micro wind powered box that would then have a Wi-Fi repeater sounds fantastic to me, but
Yeah.
I think that's going to be complicated. There's going to be a lot to it. Not that I'm opposed.
Now, in terms of soliciting public ideas on where to put them,
Yeah.
would you want to put something, that be a place for like the weekly thing, or is that just too?
But yeah,
Because I'm not sure how many people watch this, and you said like
Right,
anyone out
yeah.
there, but you know, in terms of you know, soliciting ideas, it could be like a little note somewhere. to say,
So here's the question. There's definitely interest at the ball fields down off by LNF Park, sort of the
Oh,
line drive.
bypass, yeah.
They're definitely interested in having us cover down there. But that's that trenching that we're talking about, like that's exactly the trenching that we were discussing. That's gonna be some expensive line running
Yeah.
to get it over there. They've asked, so it's easy for us to deal with government entities, harder for us.
School's got the bus garage right across, you know, you can do something like, I don't know, work with the school on to see if they can,
Maybe.
you know, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, we did?
or by the soccer field. Yeah, we
Yeah.
cover,
Right.
we're getting that direction, but not all the way down there.
Isn't there a town playground? Towards the Jared.
Yeah, there is, there's like a.
Well,
yeah.
but is
Is that
that
in
in
the
the,
district?
I don't know if that's in the district.
That's in the town, but I don't think it's in the
Henry
district.
The Henry Hudson,
Henry Hudson Park is not.
I don't think it is.
Well, there's a, it's got a disability.
So is it the Glenmont Job Corps? So like, if is it north or south of Glenmont Job?
You know what, I'll find.
We'll find it, okay.
It's like on the end of like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that little park thing there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
But it's, they're a building where they keep all their maintenance drugs and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, a couple of weeks.
Okay. Take a peek.
I remember should be reaching out to the scouts. Sounds like it's
Yeah, big time, yeah.
an easy project.
Take a trench.
Okay, Jeff, any other questions for Jeff? Report. Okay, going into UHLS report.
Well, there's no August meeting this month, but the services committee isn't gonna be getting off, so we're waiting for dates for the construction grant applications, and I emailed before this meeting, and I don't have any yet, so.
Okay.
They're coming. Always fun. That's what we actually, I would say. And if you're ever interested, let me know, I can share that information with you. It's really amazing what libraries put in for construction grants. Little tiny things and giant things.
Well, we have little tiny libraries and giant libraries,
Yeah.
and that's the school district libraries, our restrictions on that are much more than
Everyone.
the nonprofit libraries. The non-governmental libraries have a much easier time putting in a grant application, because it's as easy as to have an idea and just say, sure, you know, so for us, there's a lot more, especially now. We have to have SHPO approval because our building is historic. It's over 50 years old.
Continued.
Yes. Well, thank you for that. I know that's a lot of work. So you're coming into it, so I appreciate it.
Okay, any questions for Lisa? Going to new business, bylaws. Sure.
So the policy committee. Which is like Lisa, Mark and I, took all the different feedback. We also had some consultation, and Jeff is also had some consultation from the trustees and an attorney. And so what you have before you is the policies committee's recommendations that are marked by track changes. On integrating the feedback. And it comes in a couple different ways. Some of the edits are just clarifications. For example, the qualifications of a candidate versus an elected trustee in terms of the statements we all have to sign. Some of them are more significant changes that they are indicating that they have to be a citizen. That the vote for offices is an open vote, not a secret vote. Clarification about the treasurer position and changes in public comment periods. And then some more significant things have to be discussed, continued discussion with the board, and particularly around the number of officers. And how much flexibility the board should have. So what we agreed after going through and producing this document is to ask if anyone has any questions about anything as any of the edits first. And then we'll take any amendments if people want to change the existing draft. So this is basically like a first read of the document. It'll come back in September for a second reader and a vote. So to start off with, are there any questions on the edits that appear, and then after that discussion period, we'll go to, is there anything that people want to have changed? Does that make sense? And I'm having a little bit, to be quite honest with you, a little bit of hard time hearing. And if people can't hear me with the mask, just let me know and I'll take it off. So folks can make sure speak loudly if possible. And then Jeff, if there's an agreement of an edit, when we get to that point, just make sure you're going to capture it. So any questions on any of the edits that appear or any of the changes?
Is one on the citizenship requirement?
Yes.
And is that mandated by New
Law.
York State?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
No, it's shocking.
That appears on page 22.
A green card permanent resident. Owner of a home in Bethlehem and taxpayer. Really?
No, yeah, we actually had an example of that. We had a person I thought it was a Professor at SUNY. I thought he would have been a great trustee that wanted to run, but not a citizen of the United States. And when he went down, I didn't even know that myself. He went down to Blood School District. That's their school district. So
State rule?
I think it's law.
And they're also ineligible to vote. My spouse is not a US citizen.
Right.
He's called a resident alien and ineligible to vote.
So I wondered on the officers and election of officers, those two sections on page 27.
Yep.
It looks like they are doing two different things that possibly cancel each other out. The first one says the board has flexibility to create positions, and the other one says we're gonna vote for one. So should we have one or the other?
So tell me where the text is. So,
Under officers,
okay,
it says,
which paragraph do you have
it's just one sentence. Oh, no, it is two sentences. Under officers, Article 4, officers.
Mhm.
The last sentence, it says, as the board deems fit to create other officers. And then under election of officers, it says there'll be an election, an open vote to elect an officer. So either we're electing officers or the board is just choosing officers.
I think the way we envisioned that, and maybe it needs to be clearer, is that if the board doesn't decide to add additional positions, I mean, for any position you're talking about, you would need to vote and be the top vote winner.
Yeah, so that's what that's why I read it too, but we could, I don't know if there's language. we could-
Well, it says if the first officer section seems to be saying to me that the board can choose to have, for example, co-vice presidents. And that gives the board that flexibility. The second paragraph seems to me to be saying If there's two or more people interested, you have a vote for one of them.
Well, it could be that there's. And the language on the first is additional vice presidents or officers.
Yeah.
So we might correct.
Maybe it needs to say for one position.
Well, or say,
Instead of
or say,
office.
in the event, or, you know, we can work on it, should the board. Decide to only have single officer. Positions for a given year, we need to clarify that, that's something I hadn't caught of.
Yeah.
But to add some kind of clarifying language that in the event that, well, let's keep talking about this, I see Jeff writing, but in the event that the board does not. Create vice presidents. Let's see, we haven't even caught that. Let's just keep tossing it around, let's keep
Yeah.
tossing it as a group.
Because if we decide that the board can just have the flexibility to choose, I honestly don't think you need those last two sentences under election. It could just say the nominating committee will present a slate of officers to be elected at the July meeting. Additional nominations will be made from the floor, period.
Right, but if, for example, the one example that the attorney recommended, there can be one president. Right, there's gotta be one president, there can be, you know. First vice president, second, third, fourth, fifth vice president, but there's gotta be one president, so other people would run for president.
Oh, that's right, okay, so maybe we can clarify that.
Well, and also the language about additional nominations from the floor,
Right, which means,
that's where you would maybe need that secondary. language.
yeah, I think the first we should add something, the first that said the board should, you know, first decide on. The officer slate, or the officer, not slate, the number of officers to have in the coming year. The second paragraph is like, okay, the nominating committee will take that information and present a slate, but other people can get it from the floor, right? That was the idea.
Sure, and then under 2, let me see if this works, so we see the number 2 in parentheses. If 2 or more trustees have been nominated for the office of president. The election will be held by open vote, because it can be only a single president.
Well,
Well, I mean, and also if somebody from the floor is,
right. So say that.
so the nominating committee could bring forth a slate, and somebody could say, I'm not on that slate.
Right.
Be secretary.
Have been nominated or, okay. Nominated. By the nominating committee or from the floor, president. Do you see where we're going, Jeff? Do you-
I got it.
You got
Yeah,
it,
like,
okay.
sort of.
I'm not 100% sure how to make it clearer, but
But no, I think it was an interesting point. So it says, let me see what I've heard and see if that's accurate and see if that's where we want to go. Under 2, the number 2. If 2 or more trustees have been nominated by the nominating committee or from the floor for the office of president, the election will be held. So
It doesn't, I mean, it's not just.
it doesn't have to be just president.
Right, so if, for example, we have a slate of president, the 2 vice presidents, the secretary,
Okay,
and then one.
and then someone else is added.
Someone says, wait, I don't-
Okay, so, okay,
No, so it means just.
so.
they have election. Right. So maybe it's
So I, instead of saying for one office, I maybe say one position.
one position, maybe, yeah.
And then nominated by the committee or from the floor.
Right.
Yeah,
And maybe
I don't-
the
I don't
single
think it
position.
matters whether they're.
Yeah.
Or the nominating committee. There's,
Yeah.
because if you have a nominating committee and then someone says, I want to nominate myself. because
Yeah.
if they're on, they're not, then they're not.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And we'll just assume that people know that if it's a single position, it's for a year in which the board has decided not to have additional.
Well, I mean, we might want to add a sentence to that upper section, that officer section.
Yeah.
To require the board to decide how many positions they're slating.
Like maybe prior to the, probably
The
the
election- the election officers. Okay.
Yeah.
The nomination to the
Okay, that's good idea.
inflation question outside, the number of officers.
Yeah. It makes say the number of officers, so under that first opening paragraph after fit. The board of trustees. Must decide on the number of officer positions.
Well,
the year?
But because after we were done with that, I was going to also suggest, may consider that terminology doesn't actually create any authority. So if we said, the treasurer and director serve, oh no, sorry. In any given year, the trustees may create additional officers or co-officers, period. It takes out that may consider,
Consider, okay.
and actually does.
So may create instead of consider, okay? And then just say the number of officer positions should be determined before the election.
Well, if you're saying create additional officers or co-officers, that's inclusive of any number.
But I think when the nominating committee is doing their work,
They should know what they're doing.
all board members should know what they're slating.
Right.
So if, you know,
So
the
prior-
nominating
yeah.
committee is calling you and saying, oh, we're slating X number of positions, you should know ahead of time what that is.
Yeah. I agree, there should be like, before the nominating committee. Finishes deliberation or something, there should be like, here's the number of positions. that we have. That's it.
What does the nominating committee decide that or the board?
The board.
The
decision.
board, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, the board would say, okay, let's try to figure out what this is just talking, I'm not sure. Then the board would just say, okay, we're this year. For the next year, we want the president, a couple of vice presidents, secretary and president. So we need 7 people, we need 5 officers or 6, whatever the number is, right?
so it's implied, we don't need to say that so if we change the word consider to create, is that satisfactory enough?
Yeah, may create additional officers or co-officers. I would just put period, I wouldn't even put as a word,
Just,
word
yeah,
deems fit,
period.
it's just,
Yeah, that's just.
verbiage.
Okay. But it can't be
That's the
co-president.
same idea. Yeah. I think that's better way.
Good points, Michelle, thanks. Anyone else have a question to anything else? We just also wanted to clarify that because of the discussion from the last meeting and that the election has already taken place. Because by the bylaws, this is supposed to happen in, I think,
July.
well, at a previous meeting, that there was discussion last meeting of holding the possibility of September of forwarding a nominee at that time. So if there aren't any other questions, is there anything in the document or other passages that people would want to create changes from, either from an existing edit or anything that we haven't caught?
I just want to also point out the way you amend the bylaws is not voting twice, it's just posting them in the meeting materials. Or you don't have to vote, like this is just make it clear. You have to vote after they've been in the meeting materials 2 times, but you don't have to vote the first time, right? That's kind of, I mean, we didn't require our idea is not require 2
readings, I think.
votes, but a reading, the public and then look at it, and then the vote would be. So you can't do a bylaws and with the same meeting you propose.
Right.
That's like the issue.
So this is considered the first reading and what would take place. And just to note that the issue of public participation, we decided to strike the 15 minutes. Because we didn't want to constrain people to say we only give 15 minutes, and we didn't want folks who had an issue they wanted to bring to the board's attention that did not pertain to an agenda item to have to wait till the end of the meeting in order to say it. So that's, but the board does retain the authority to limit the length of time that any individual. And I would imagine that if that's happening in a meeting, let's say we know there's 20 people
Right.
in line, we don't limit just one person, we'll say everyone, given the number of people who wish to speak, we'll give each person 2.
That would be important to have the same.
Yeah.
And then we did add language saying they could submit written
Comments,
comments
yes.
in addition, or
That's just recognition of what we're doing, right? So people have been able to do that and that about whether you can speak on the agenda or open items. People tend to come at the beginning of the meeting. They really speak on anything. Some people may be speaking about the agenda, but it's rather than make people have to sit around.
You can't stop.
Correct. But you don't want to make someone sit around and say, oh, I'm sorry, that's not the agenda. You have to sit around till the end of the meeting, sit through the whole meeting and then have your say.
I'll tell you stories later. And then
Well, you may want.
I mean,
They want them to be never would actually.
seems wildly unfair.
And trustee mentioned that about quorum and not if you're coming in remotely, you don't count as quorum.
That's
That is a change.
Right there.
And then I actually did have a question too on that.
Yeah.
And this is just a general question. If their participation doesn't count toward a quorum, are they still able to vote?
They are. So that's the policy that we read and then voted on the second time. Remember that video conferencing policy? They are allowed to vote specifically. We have
If they could vote.
Yeah.
Why is it? not?
it's in the law. You have to have a quorum in the room. So as long as I have 4 of you here, 3 people can participate remotely. But even if I had all 7 board members remote and participating, if I only have 3 people in the room, we don't have a quorum. I don't know why that's the way the law has been made. Now, that's after the emergency
I was gonna say, yeah.
suspension of that open meetings law, which I think we're still under right now. Someday, I imagine that's gonna expire. So we're just getting everything set when we come out of an emergency someday. And then that will be the law of the land going forward. You have to have 4, I have to have 4 of you in the room, don't have a meeting. That's just. I don't know why the law was written that way, but that's the way the law was written.
I think the committee appreciated all the review, comment, energy that went into it.
That was a lot, yeah.
And Jeff was a great note taker during the meeting where.
Jeff, can you double check on that citizenship?
I will. I 100%.
Find references to state assembly and things like that, but not specifically school board or whatever.
So there's no motion, right? That's just a reading, correct, Mark?
Yeah,
But we captured all the wording, because the next time it'll be for a vote, correct? Jeff, you're comfortable with what you captured in your notes?
Yep, and I'll put it back out. So I'll do my part. If you guys will just check and make sure that what I'm doing is reflective of what you think. We'll get that posted up and make sure that we meet our public notice. Make sure you all have it, of course, and then put it up for the public.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for your work on that. That was a lot. But important.
Oh, and then we also put that it should be reviewed every 5 years. You put actually a time frame on that, correct?
3 years.
3 years.
3 years.
Every 3 years.
Okay,
So,
3 years, yeah.
gotcha.
Because I think the last time it was a while ago.
It has been a while.
Okay.
But no, would you put that in the bylaws or would you say every 3 years?
yeah, well, that's the question. I thought that was more of a note. I don't know if we put it in the bylaws. I think we would just. What I would recommend is we just put it in the meeting notes and then someone put it on the calendar. Because it's kind of weird to have it like date of next review right in the bylaws, I think, but.
Do you want to put in the bucket?
agree. Yeah.
I mean, okay, so it's law now that they have to be reviewed every 3 years. So do you want, I mean, so it doesn't have to be in here. Because it's law, or bylaws can't supersede law. But do you want to put something in there that says these should be reviewed no less often than every 3 years? Do you want that in the would you want that in the bylaws? Not necessary, because the law is the law. Okay, fair enough.
Just need some way to track that.
Yeah, I said ideally.
I think I suggested that, because I know.
Because like
what happens.
the school district did that too. They started to slot in.
Yeah.
A calendar.
Yep.
Of all, once a year, whatever, to track
Not a bad
things, because you just lose track of them. So what things for annual, things for whatever, it's just slotting to slot in. Things that had to be reviewed, and even if there was no date on something, it still got slotted in, because otherwise you just. Okay.
I'm gonna put that as the 1500 job of this position.
Okay.
Just
Well,
for
yeah,
human.
maybe policy committee can work on it.
Yeah, we'll get it. But no, I think that's the kind of stuff that I
Yeah.
need.
Because again, you get
I mean,
lost.
those kinds of things are very hard to keep track of when you have turning over.
Well,
anybody.
maybe it's the duty of the policy committee each year to review the calendar. And set the time frame.
Yeah.
For what has to be reviewed and then wants to be reviewed, but. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item was a board retreat. Was it
I
interesting?
just decided to end, I think, the last meeting. I think I was virtual last, because I was feeling well.
Yeah.
I just wanted to raise the issue to the board is. I think we had a retreat last September, I believe.
I'll bill.
I know we have some training that's going to happen in
January, February.
January, February. And so I was wondering if the board wanted to have kind of a tune-up retreat. I degrees and a lot of practice on board development, and so one thing's, the group dynamics theory tells us you change one member of the group's new.
Right.
And given the amount of discussion potentially the board has to ahead of it this year with potential building projects. It may be helpful to just even have a brief gathering. I might look to Lisa or maybe Upper Hudson if they have facilitated, talk about, you know, how is the board gonna make its decisions, how it's going to, any kinds of nuts and bolts tune up. It doesn't have to be extensive. But I think it's always helpful for working any kind of work groups, even if they're high performing teams. To have a check-in. I do realize that it takes more time.
Yeah.
But that's, I think that's the only thing I wanted to raise is maybe September, October, maybe October is a bit more realistic, if the board felt like it was useful. I don't know if they do.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think we have to consider people's time, but a check-in would be a good idea. Would be a good idea.
And then maybe, I don't know if there's an, well, October, I don't know what's on there, but if it's going to be maybe a 60 to 90 minute thing. Which could be,
It might work.
it might be an extended meeting if people are prepared to stay, you know, maybe it's 6 to 9 or something. I'm just thought, it just came to me as an idea. And so we do the business aspect of it. Not that we truncate that, but we'll see how that, so that's one option, so we don't add another date.
There's also, we'll talk about that for the building committee. There's also at the building committee, we're gonna be talking, we don't have signed contract yet with our architect,
Okay.
but there's going to be
They're gonna need
board
time.
activity,
They're gonna need time.
outside board meeting, board activities
Okay.
as we get in there. So I don't know if that may or may not fulfill that same,
Sure.
some similar, but
Sure,
we'll-
sure. But also like if there is a committee working with, or like, again, how do we
Yeah.
manage the communication? Is there anything that if people have concerns about? You know, I don't think a discussion is gonna be potentially controversial, but having been through a few of them, it's more like, you know, how do we maintain discussion lines? How are we, you know, as a board, how do we function as effectively as possible? And that's just, does someone have a preference? Like Charmaine can't hear. So Charmaine has a preference for talking loudly, but maybe someone says, I'm more of a visual person than an auditory person. So it's a time for people to state, this is what's gonna work for me this year, given, and this is what I like less discussion when we make decisions. I like more, you know, so people just put it on the table so that we're aware of preferences and styles, and then with a facilitator potentially could say, okay, are we good to go?
I definitely understand the positive intent behind it. I do worry that 2023 is going to be very busy with the UHLS training, which seems a little extensive, January and February, and then that building project is going to take a lot of time outside of board meetings. And considering it is a volunteer organization, I do think taking into account time is gonna be a factor this coming year, maybe more so than other years.
And so that, you know, if we do the retreat, if it still makes sense, is for folks to say, this is how it's gonna affect me. And this is gonna be a busy year, what am I gonna need, you know, or this is something I need you to know about. I have an elderly, this is not true, but I have an elderly relative. I have closing on me, so I'm gonna be like, so. And people can share whatever they want, but again, I just wanted to throw it out there as a possibility. I think it would be, for any team. A chance to just check in, given as Michelle has acknowledged, the amount of stuff that has to get done. It's gonna be a different kind of year. And if we're all good, we can say half an hour, or we're good. Okay, we don't. So are we setting this eyeballing October potentially for that, or are we gonna raise it again at the next meeting, or?
When do you think the board activity related to the architect? I'm trying to. Like, that might be October.
I feel like October, if we can
Me
get
too.
the contract settled.
Right, so maybe November. Maybe it's like a November thing.
Okay.
Is it something that we will vote on as a board to have a retreat, or we're just?
November will be the audit presentation, just to. throw that
Thank
out
you.
there.
Oh, that's.
Okay. So it doesn't sound like there's a whole, unless you did it in September. By the time you do it, it's gonna be running up against the diversity training, right? And we would have already been into like heavy duty discussions and.
That's why I'm just not sure. So right now, well, listen, we'll talk about the billing committee. You'll understand my reticence to, I don't want to jump that. So
Exactly, right,
we'll just talk a little bit about that and maybe we can circle back and just so I can
Sure,
explain.
sure,
where
okay,
we're
yeah,
going.
yeah, let's circle back.
So-
Thank you.
Right, so we'll circle back on it. So the personnel records digitization on 33 and 34.
Yep, so we have a quote, so we, every once in a while, we like to digitize our personnel records. There are some records that we have to keep forever and ever. And personnel records are one of them, and they always grow, and there's a lot of them, as Tracy can attest, how many filing cabinets she has. So we would like to, send these out and have a bunch of what I'm gonna call dead personnel records. Is that fair? Like, we did it, and now we have.
Oh, we've out.
I was gonna ask you how far back, you're gonna do this forever, really?
That was my one no vote.
By law?
We can ask Catherine.
That
Nineteen.
was the last time, but that wasn't personnel, that was, that wasn't the update.
Well,
Or that was fiscal and,
Other-
some personnel records from the clean up.
So Charmaine was asking how long we have to keep personnel records.
Oh, well. You know, some of them
Too long.
55 years, some of them. Think about long term. I mean, like retirement records or pages or work there.
Okay, no, that was my only question, because I saw that.
So they're easier for us to access if they're digitized, send them out and have them. So this is, we got two quotes, both of them are under New York State preferred source contracts under NYSED. We liked this quote from InStream better than the other one. They're within dollars though of each other. So it's over my authorization limit. So I would like permission to digitize.
So are they searchable? Okay. Good.
And what we're gonna have to do is, last time we did this, we had a frozen record. I'm gonna call them like previous employees who haven't worked here for years. We digitized them. And then we realized that there are records that we add pertaining to employees that are no longer employed by us that we need to add to their, so we're gonna have those digitized, and then Tracy's gonna do some work, because now PDFs are more editable than they used to be, getting those put together. So we'll do sort of a merge and get all those put together, so we kind of have them in one place.
So what's the little number in red underneath there?
That's just the page number.
Page number.
That's just, that
okay.
gets
For a second, I thought it was like an edit.
Yeah,
It's
no,
like,
it gets-
look like
it gets
this, but there's no, sorry, right, got it.
painted over the top of all of us.
It's been a long day on the computer.
So,
What do we do with the records when we?
so we get a copy that then gets uploaded into the cloud that Tracy has a working copy. So they're PDFs, we have this working copy, we take the CD and previously microfilm, but we're not gonna have microfilm created this time. Take that CD, we keep a copy of that in a locked filing cabinet at Upper Hudson. That way, if the building were to ever meet a fire in the personnel office, then we have a record of it offsite plus then in the cloud. So lots of copies means never having to say we're sorry.
And then you read anything that's in paper, like.
Yeah, we shred the paper. So sorry, the whole point of this is getting rid of the paper records, which is.
This is crazy. You're sending them to Buffalo,
Yeah,
but. Whatever. Nice.
that's,
And that's what it is. And what's your limit? I thought it was
5,000.
5,000, just above it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this comes out of what line? Just out of curiosity,
Just,
like our basic maintenance.
We'll find a line for it.
yeah.
Okay, figure it out, okay, okay.
I know.
We'll see it on the
I'm just
warrant.
learning about this now, so.
Yeah, we'll see it on the warrant. Okay. All right, thank you.
I didn't have a question. I assume we need a motion.
we do need a motion.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to authorize the purchase of digital personnel file version.
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion, no discussion, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carries. Okay, I did have one other, are we gonna talk about, do you need us talk about September's.
I have good news about September.
Okay, so I want to bring that up on the good business stuff.
Yeah.
So we talked about, closing the in-person in August because of staffing issues, and we talked about making sure to bring it up in the August meeting to talk about September. I just want to bring it up, make sure that what are we doing are we closing or opening?
So I am pleased to report that we have been able to hire a part-time librarian for Friday nights. And they will be starting on August 15th, and that will give them a good amount of time to be ready for September. Right, so
So we're going back to the.
previous schedule. Yeah, that was, that was what I heard at the last meeting, that was the strong preference. So, so we were, I'm gonna say incredibly lucky.
Yeah.
So, I'll take it.
Did you get much feedback about publicizing that or? I mean, I was here on like probably one of the Friday nights at the end of July.
Right.
It was pretty dead.
Yeah, it's dead. I mean, there is a discussion to be had at some point. I'm reticent to make a discussion. Because we talked about door count earlier, like we're not back to normal. Or maybe we are back at normal. I don't
Who
know,
knows?
but I'm.
It's the new norm.
Our new normal. I'm reticent to have that discussion. Friday nights have traditionally been, are absolutely the deadest. So it has been a source of pride for myself and for the library traditionally that we were one of the few Friday libraries open on Friday nights. Most libraries close. Most libraries in the world close either 5 or 6 p.m. on a Friday. Not because we want to be awesome to the staff, though I'm happy to be awesome to the staff, but mostly because it's just a recognition of the fact that there's not as many people here on a Friday night as there are on other nights. So I've always, it appealed to my numeracy to have the same hours Monday to Friday, just 9 to 9. It's very easy, it's simple. I don't like libraries that have out. They have to do it. That's not, everybody's watching out in the world. I'm sorry. I don't like it when the hours are all over the place. I think it's confusing for the people. So but that said, I think there is a discussion to be had at some point about the attendance of people on Friday night and whether long-term it's worth.
Can you keep data, like start keeping?
Oh, we don't need to start. I got a lot of data. Catherine leaves behind a fantastic.
Last Friday, they just like, let's get.
We got it. And so we know, I mean, we know what the hours. It's just, it's never been a discussion for us because we were like, well, listen, if we're here, we're serving, we have a budget for it. But I think there is a discussion to be had there. There's a reason the other libraries are closed on Friday nights. It's not.
I think the discussion is larger than that, honestly. I think it's like, let's discuss hours.
Yeah, I think that's.
Because it's like, we'll have a new, normal, maybe not. You have, this is the first in my time that you're in staffing issues. I mean, you've never heard that like
No.
in the past. So but I think it might be worth the discussion of the hour, because hours in general, Friday nights, Sundays, do we open one Sunday in the summer or not?
Right.
Like some stuff like that. I think we should talk. I mean, people kind of got in a routine. It's like, oh yeah, this is what it is. But
Right, and it rolls along, and I think it takes years to switch those expectations. We
Right.
started opening. We stayed open on like President's Day, used to close at 5. It took years for people to discover. You're gonna be open.
Exactly, yeah.
Now, as I look back on it, maybe nobody cares. Maybe we didn't need to be open. I mean, it appealed to us to want to try to be open, to be as open as possible. But there are a reason that a number of libraries, as I started looking through this, I started looking at the hours of our fellow libraries in the area. None of them are back to pre-pandemic. Like we are, as far as I can tell, we're one of the few libraries that is, same schedule before as after. And that I found very interesting. That's, I mean, both interesting and disturbing a little bit. A lot of the libraries are closing at 8 now. I don't think that would fly with us, but there's a discussion to be had there.
plus we never had curbside.
Yeah.
Like, that was a phenomenon that,
Right,
it's come upon and popular.
right.
Diminishing probably, but.
I don't think diminishing. I think
Right.
Holden, it went to somewhere
I mean,
and it is steady there. It's not crazy. It's not like we're being overwhelmed, but it's a steady business for us. And I think if we removed it, you
No,
hear from
you
the
would hear.
It might, that might influence your in person.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you have this new thing now, so.
And we're not counting, you know, you don't count those people as door count, like, that's not a door count, because it's not, they didn't come through the doors. But they're using the library, and if they had run in on a Friday night.
But why would you use them as door count? Because they're here taking
Do you
advantage of
keep
the
statistics
service.
separately, at least curbside? Like, say.
We do sweeps, so we do there isn't, I don't have a counter, an automatic counter for that, and we don't have a way to do that through the computer.
Okay.
So we count it periodically, we just tell the staff, so we do a statistical sampling on sort of a number of normal-ish weeks, and we can back into what we think is.
I mean, it's a service. I mean, if you didn't provide it, they would be walking.
Right.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
Yeah.
I gotcha. It's just,
That's a good point.
I can report it, but the state's gonna
Right.
argue with me on whether that's a door.
Well, that's another issue.
That's all right.
If we would have, if we would like the board to have a discussion of ours. And there could be a change enacted based on the discussion. Would you like that change to start around a calendar year or a fiscal year? I'm giving a sense of like how, like, given everything else the board's dealing, when do you?
I'd be more likely to want that to start on the calendar, or on the fiscal year,
Okay.
because the July starts the change in our business from a winter business or sort of school year business to the summer, which is really the time of year that it's fundamentally different. December's a little different, it's super slow, but it's just a 1 month. Summer is one thing and the rest of the year is another thing. They're wildly different.
So it sounds like you would like the discussion to happen over the course of this year,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
but so we shouldn't lose track of it,
Yep.
given everything else.
I got you.
Right, okay.
That's good. So.
Should be like old business hours or something, or like, however many meetings you want to drop it in there for, but.
We'll get some data put together and then we'll begin to have the discussion. We'll look at it different for summer versus school,
Yeah.
because the like night times in the summer are not busy, but during the school year are busy.
Yeah.
Okay, blah, blah, blah. Thank you.
Okay, any other new business for anyone? Moving into old business, board meeting scheduled for 2023. In your packet.
So we just have the one question about the April board meeting, whether you want to move it to the following week.
I know in years past, we had moved it. I don't still have kids in the school system, but when I did. And I know Sarah has kids in the school system and Harmeet possibly, yeah. So, I mean, I might
And
suggest
what
moving it to
night of
next week.
Passover does that fall on? Do you happen to know? Like,
I don't know.
I think there's at least 2 nights of. Significant nights of, so it sounds like they're maybe just moving anyway because of school vacation,
Yeah.
and that way you avoid the. Conflict of the holiday also.
That's it.
Move to the 17th. Okay, I've got it all queued up. The room's already reserved.
Oh.
Listen, your turnaround to May is close. That's, it's kind of, but that's fine. That's fine.
It is weird. It's just,
It's fine.
it's weird. I don't wanna.
Yeah. No, don't change anything else. I agree. I just pointing that out. So
I hate those early, like this one.
this one. Yeah, so yeah, I think we should work.
That would be interesting, depending on how far we are. On that building discussion,
Right. So that's,
truncating even more, yeah.
there's a separate discussion that we're gonna have as we roll into any kind of building project. That's where I went down a rabbit hole with our attorney when we were talking about officers. One example that she used was you create either a committee or an officer for a defined period of time over a defined scope that can that can take action for the board on the board's behalf on something that needs to, is of immediate importance, like something like the building. So that, I think as when we get to construction. And we're gonna have to be taking some action like that, that discussion we need to have again.
Okay, I think that might be something good to talk about at a retreat,
Yeah,
because I'm not sure I would be comfortable with that. I'm on the building committee and I'm not sure I'd be comfortable with that. Having gone through a couple of districts, I think it's important for the entire board to be, but maybe people will disagree with that, would be an issue for the retreat to say. Are people giving this group or this committee the power to make decisions on behalf of the board on that building project? And so if that comes up, I would. I said, I'm on the committee and I would want.
Yeah, that's-
every
Or
board
maybe,
member.
maybe put, guardrails around the kinds of things
Yeah,
that
you
are,
define the
you
scope.
know, define what is fine and what has to go forward.
It has to be, and that's,
It's a different ball of wax, but I also think. Going, we'll talk about it if we have a retreat, or somewhere else, we'll
Yeah.
talk about like. The nature of what, what's important for people to have. Okay,
so I don't think I need to vote on that, it's just our consensus meeting, move that to April 17th. I'm gonna write that down.
and none of these other days fall on any kind of faith-based holiday or cultural.
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna say that with 100% sure,
No.
but Kristen did her due diligence and she pointed out this one as a particular. That's why she highlighted it, particularly that one was problematic.
I will tell you, I once worked for an organization called the National Conference of Christians and Jews. And when I walked into the office my first day, they were parceling out the projects, and that organization. Did a religious calendar for about 15 different faiths, and no one said they'd do the project, so.
Yeah.
I said, I'll do it, and it was just,
It's amazing.
it's
Civil
amazing.
service does it, and I've
But
done
then,
that.
but then try to find, like, connect with different faith leaders who are.
It's all-
It was just amazing, but it just brought up the thing about like, as you said, as. But it's like, and there was just silence in the room, so the new we said like, I'll do it.
It's yours.
And then, oh my gosh, it's unbelievable. We sold tons of them though.
Yeah.
Because we did a printed calendar,
All right,
Building committee report.
okay, so just quickly report, just where we are. So at the last board meeting, we had authorization to enter into agreement with Ashley McGraw as our architect for this feasibility study-ish thing. And they came back with their formal American Institute of Architects contract. That contract has been sent to our contracts attorney, who has some notes. So that's where we are right now. Mark and I will hopefully Thursday, I'll circle back with you just to check on the date. We'll talk with the attorney about that, and then we have to go back to the architect with our proposed changes to their standard contract, and then however it gets worked out. From there, I have no idea what happens next, but our architect has some, or sorry, our attorney, they're very good attorneys, they're very detail oriented. What you want, but they've got some notes, so.
Major subject areas of concern.
No, I read through it quickly. I mean, again, I mean, he's gonna brief us, but I didn't see anything huge.
I'll send.
Yeah, it might be
I'll send the
helpful,
whole
as far
thing.
as the chair, that should take, it might be helpful, just loop it in, this is chair of the committee.
You got it.
Should definitely look at it.
Question. The whole conflict of interest thing.
Yeah.
Did that get settled, or is that part of it, or, because your brother works at,
Yeah, Mark, that's why Mark is, there's no communication, so just, I'll tell you what I'm doing.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so, because of, my potential conflict of interest,
yes,
I'd like to be 100% above board. So anytime I'm talking about this contract.
Okay.
Mark is copied on all communications,
Okay.
with me, and I will not be meeting with our attorney about this. No.
Okay.
So,
so the architect can still do business with that firm,
correct,
okay.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure.
yeah, absolutely, it's
Because I
not,
was like, okay, so how is he gonna be looped into, okay, I got it, because I read it and I'm like, okay, how is Jeff gonna be part of this, I got it, all right, thank you.
you got it, because, and it's, I don't vote. Right, but it's to say that I don't have some influence or authority
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
is silly too, so it's just, I just keep it
got it,
all up there and make sure. Anybody else who wants to be copied on my emails, let me know, I'll copy you in as well, delighted to do so.
Okay,
Okay, so that's where we are, so as soon as that comes back, I'll send that, contract notes.
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if Harmeet would have any feedback or anything, but again, as the chair of the buildings committee, on that, yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right, so I don't know where, I'm imagining we'll send that to Ashley McGraw, they're gonna
it'll be about.
push back on some of them and we'll bounce back and forth, and eventually we'll have a contract that can be signed.
There.
I mean, the goal is to have a contract at the next meeting. That's my goal. I don't know
Yeah.
if we can reach it, but we're gonna try to reach it. I'd like to get them going.
Well, I was scrambling for this meeting and
Right.
just with the attorney lagged, it's just here it is not at this meeting, so we'll have it for the next.
Oh,
It's just didn't start. The architect that we talked to is emailed saying, hey, let's get going here.
Smooth.
Yeah, sure, clock's ticking.
Yeah.
It may,
Yeah.
potentially, doesn't have to be, but.
Have they done a lot of work with libraries, or is that some piece of the?
They've done enough work on libraries to be competent at libraries, but what they do is a lot of work with school districts. And so you're talking about the architect.
Right.
Yeah. So the understanding of where we are in place as a school district public library and the complexities of like the grant cycle and all of that. The budget vote, the campaigns for budget vote, that sort of stuff, they are tuned into that, where some of the other architects were
They were not.
substantially less tuned into that as part of their, into the DNA of the firm. That makes sense?
Yeah, they had done enough school-related libraries, so that, yeah.
I just wondered if some of the issues with regard to the contract were related to not having, either using boilerplate language that isn't really customized to our kind of situation.
It was absolutely about boilerplate language that we used, but had nothing to do with the fact that we're a school district public, like, in my estimation. I really, we're buried into the legalese of, and I'm like, what? How does this actually impact what we do for a feasibility study? But
Yeah.
Yeah, and they did the high school library.
But no, I don't judge it was because of that. I think it is that the AIA contract is very much boilerplate.
Okay.
And our contract attorney was like, nope.
Do that.
We don't do that. We're not saying that. You have obligations to do this and report back. So I can't judge, like, it's what we're gonna be asking, insulting or not, I have no idea. So we'll be what it is. All right, and then a while ago, when we were talking about the long range services plan, we're ready to move on from that.
Yeah,
I wanted to do just a quick report back, just an update. We're not gonna read through this, but it exists for your review. Just our sort of interim step as far as where we are as the long range services plan, not the building plan. This is the services implementation. And so Chris and Catherine and I went through this document and sort of where are we as far as moving forward on some of these things. Some things have been completed, which is super nice, easy. We need a couple wins, that's great. But also some of these other things that we're moving forward with. And I think it was a good time, actually, this is a good time. We're so buried in immediacy and things that are critical. It was nice for me, and I think it was, as we talked about this with the assistant directors, to just take a little bit of a breather, think back through, talk about where we are, and remember that this is the stuff that we said we were going to do. And so there we are. This is my report back to you on that.
I thought it was excellent, actually, to see.
Good.
yeah.
And that is gonna, I know in the fall, we're gonna be getting into the evaluation process. I want to make sure that this was back in front of you, so we had something to begin to talk about that with that as well. So it was good. It was good for me to look back through it. And special thanks to Chris and Catherine, as always. Your look on that.
Oh, great, thank you. Okay, future business. Any other business that people want to bring up at this meeting? Future
It's
business?
just maybe, you mentioned your evaluation process. I believe the personnel committee has 4 people on it. Mark's, like, what are they called?
Yeah,
Ex officio.
Exhibition, yeah.
So that we will probably be I think you're looking to get a meeting of that committee together to start talking about, so maybe at the next meeting. Would be just, a review of that. I think that's been kind of on the, it's moving towards the front burner, but the personnel committee will meet, and there's some feedback on the staff questions, and then we'll start actually prepping the board to kick off the new evaluation process.
Yeah, so the interesting thing about the personnel committee, because there's 4 people on the committee, that's a quorum. So I have to declare those meetings. That's a public meeting. We have to declare those out ahead of time and make sure that that there's sufficient public notice. And if we meet virtually, we have to use the live stream. So
So if one person doesn't show up to the meeting. Is it still public? I mean, just because there's 4, like, how does that work? Yeah.
let me talk to Tim and a few other things. Let me get back to you. I don't want to give you the wrong answer.
To be honest with you, I think fine dropping off of it, but since we're so integral at developing the evaluation instrument, I thought it'd be great for me to stay with the committee to get it through 1 year, but.
Well, we can talk about that at the committee. So I think that's a committee. I mean, we had 5 people on the building committee, on the long range planning committee, because that was important, right? And it's fine. We just, it's not a problem for me. That's just a
Yeah, you just gotta go.
slight wrinkle, just to acknowledge that.
Okay, and their future business, things people want to talk about? Okay, great, any public participation?
I think I do know a public participation. Let me see. It's interesting now I have a separate email. Patron greeted me in the parking lot, said how great BPL is for the community. A library staff person unnamed followed her outside to give her an item she had forgotten. She was so grateful. Your staff is awesome. So there you go. Yay. Oh, listen, I'll take it.
Exactly.
Almost finished with the adult summer reading club. Love it. There you go.
So before we end the meeting, just where do we leave the retreat thing? Are we just gonna think about that?
Right, so that, thank you.
Okay, what was
No, we
it?
could, yeah, no, we should.
That's one of the things about it, is like, did we just make a decision or not? I'm not sure what we, where we left that.
Okay, just,
Yeah.
I think. My sense is we should think about it. I think. Once we get the contract done with the architect, I think that timeline will evolve
Okay.
pretty quickly.
Okay.
So if we wanted to, I mean, basically September, I mean, if you wanted to do it after a meeting, if you want that decision, that kind of has to be decided. We can decide by email, but that. The easy times would be either September or October.
Okay.
After that, audit,
Yeah, sure. Okay.
getting ready for UHL's training, plus whatever else is going on with the architect. So I think it's gonna be then
Right.
in that area
Okay.
or not.
So maybe, should we say old business then, Mark, I'm gonna suggest this, is to say, September, maybe we decide this could be an October retreat, and then we decide that, because I don't think you can. The September board meeting like in a month, and it's like this summer and trying to get facilitators and getting feedback from the board.
Right.
So maybe old business would be, do we want to do an October retreat, and then
Yeah,
the
yes.
board discusses and decide.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
I got it.
okay. Okay, and before we call for adjournment, is there any other items you want to bring up or any public participation? Okay, I'll look for motion for adjournment. So
moved.
second, Michelle, okay, thanks, all in favor. Okay, motion's approved, thank you very much.
Thank you.